Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Monday. It's June 15th. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and it was really fairly straightforward today. We do have this midline that prices pushed through multiple times before they finally went higher and overshot the upper side, and then that led to prices breaking on this side. And I had this conversation with the trader over the weekend, and I had a little bit of I had a hard time getting him to understand this. So I'm going to explain this real quickly. When you have a channel like this working up, if you get an overshoot of the trend channel line, which this is your trend line, so on an uptrend, the trend channel is the other side of the channel, which would be the upper side. If we were trending down, then like this little short-term channel, the trend line is working on this side, and on this side is the trend channel line. So if you get an overshoot of the trend channel line, generally that means relatively close soon you're going to get a break of that trend line. And notice we overshot it. When it came back, we got the break or the close outside. Sometimes you won't even get a retest of the high on a big overshoot. Your prices will just reverse and go the other way. So in this case, we still got a price is still attempted a retest of the high, but this is a big long trend, so no surprise that we tried to go higher. But just keep that in mind. Once you see this overshoot like this, it could have happened back here or wherever. But once you see it, generally it tells you pretty quickly you're going to get a break or a close outside your trend line. And so that's a clue right there. Coming up short's a clue, and then overshooting it's a clue as well. And notice we've got the break on the next trip back to the trend line. And that's kind of how you will see it work out. So keep that in mind. So again, like I said, I had that, what made me think about that is I had that conversation with a trader, and I couldn't quite get him to see that this is your clue that you're probably going to get a break down here. So pay attention to these overshoots. That's what I'm basically trying to say. So, but it's a clear two-tiered channel working up. I had a few shorts in here early on that were really just kind of playing the little short-term ranges in here, and the fact that this looked like it might even be a range day at this point because we were playing off of some resistance up here. But notice once we kept going higher, it's pretty much all longs until we got the overshoot. And so we were in a range right here when we took this short. So other than that, you don't see, that's why you don't see many shorts from really once we came back to this trend line again. We had our first target, which is just a measured leg. You measure that first leg, and that's what I drew that line there for. And you can see we went right to that, and then we corrected for a little bit, all the way back to the trend line, and then we took off again. And we kept pushing up into this upper half, but we never could get any follow through until finally right there, and we pushed up and we actually got an overshoot. Then we dropped off, went into this little range, and eventually we broke out and fell, traded lower back to the trend line. But we had that overshoot, and notice that we overshot the trend line as well. So that's your clue. Just keep that in mind. But anyway, let's back out. We'll talk about the trades, and we'll try to get through this. I'd like to keep these videos within about 20 minutes tops. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm not having much luck, but I'm still trying. So, but anyway, let's get to the trades and wrap this up. Prices, 7 o'clock came during this big bar down right here. And so we're really just going sideways by the time. And you can see we had a little resistance here, and the lower resistance was right across here. And we had a couple of breaks, failed breaks out each side. But notice that we made the low right here. We really made it over here too. And then we came back, we tested it once, we tested it twice. It's also a second entry long. We don't care as much about second entries in a range, but if you get one with the setup, then that does lend to it. So this is a second entry long off the lows after a double test with a fairly decent signal bar here. I would have liked to seen it slightly higher, but that's still closing in the top 1/3. That's a big bar. Just go long there, and where does it go? Straight back to the upside. And we kind of chopped around. You just don't really get a short setup, and you don't really get a long setup here. And you don't want to enter in the middle, especially second entries, because you'll just get chopped to pieces. So I say that a lot, and people will still send me their chart, and they took a trade in here on saying it was a second entry, and they get burned. Look how flat that EMA has gotten by now. Just stay away from any entries in there. The only place you can enter is going long down here or short up here. Notice we get up here, back up here at the top, and you get this short. That's a first entry though. Actually, it's not a first entry. It's like a 1, 2, 3. It's like a fourth entry, but it's a new high is what I was trying to say there. And generally, you want to wait on the lower high. You may still take that trade because you can see how that support was holding. And so you might take that trade. There are 2 legs back there. And if you measure this first one, and there's your second one. We went a little further, but generally you're better off to wait on the lower high. And it came right here, and it's a nice bearish bar. And if you catch that one trade, you ride this all the way back. And that's 15 or 20 points right there. That's all if you catch that with one runner, you've had a great day. I love these kind of trades, and anytime you get a failed breakout of a range like this, I generally try to keep a runner on those. Now, just maybe trading these small pieces inside, if you don't have a lot of room, you probably don't want to keep a runner. But on a failed breakout like that, just like down here, if you'd had a good setup down here, that's the low of the day. And it could have been the high of the day. And that's generally the way those failures work out. They turn out to be the low or the high of the day, and they turn out to be important lows or important highs. And so that's where you would, on a range day, you would probably try to catch a runner on a failed breakout. And most all breakouts fail, even if only temporary. Just like this one, even though we broke out up here and continued on, notice how it failed first. And then finally found some higher support and went higher. So that's generally, don't trade with the breakout. Somebody sent me their chart and they went long up here. And it failed. But they weren't paying attention to what had happened. It was a break out of this range. There's also this trend line working up. You get a break and you move to a new high and then a lower high. So, and they actually counted this as a second entry. It's not a very good setup on my chart. Let me back out a little more. I'm a little way too close in there. I'm sorry. But notice you got your trend working up. This is actually a trend channel. And notice you got an overshoot here. You get your break. You move to a new high. Then you made a lower high. So that's a little double top. But if you look, that looks like one leg back really. Especially on their chart, these were all bearish. And so I'd treat that as a first entry and expect that you'll probably get another leg down. There's your first leg. And there's your second leg. You basically had 2 measured legs down, and then it reversed. So just be careful. Always draw your little trend line on these. And there it is. And you get a break on this one, you try to go lower once and then twice, so then you get your higher low. But that's still a little small trend channel working down through there. You can see that right there very clearly. So no long in here for sure. And I really don't like going short here because I'm only looking at that as a first entry. So you'll probably get that second leg down. You'd be better off to wait and see if you get a long. And notice how you make all that support across there. Then you get a first entry short, and you go higher, and you get a second entry short. And of course, we're not looking for shorts. There's no short set up here anyway because your signal bar is too bullish. And when it fails, and a failure happens on a second entry, which is a second entry short, but we're only looking for them to fail counter trend because the trend is up. So when that fails, if prices turn and break higher above any bar afterwards, which they do above that one, prior to getting a scalper's profit, that is a failed second entry. So when it broke higher here, it's a failure, and you got them trapped. That's a little reversal type pattern. And look at it, and you can see by how fast it rockets off that you trapped them. And we just run up and we go into another little range here. and you just don't really get a chance to go long or short. This is close to being able to short, but generally you want to wait on a lower high and an uptrend. And so this thing's trending too strongly. So until you get something working, a sure trend working down or a trap or something, just stay with the trend. And notice again, this is just a first entry here, and then it breaks lower and fails, turns up. When it breaks higher there, it's a second entry. You could go long right here. I don't know if this broke higher and then turned down or whatever. I'd wait, because notice you got a trend line working out. You got to close outside a new low all in one bar, and then it turns up. So you could consider going long right there when it's above that midline, and when you got this trend line working there too, and the EMA. That's a possibility. I'll at least mark that one green, because you could consider it. But I think you're better off to wait on a higher low to get some more confirmation, and that comes right here. And this actually broke lower and turns. Just go long, one tick above that, and you got, it doesn't look like a whole lot of room, but there's enough to scalp out, and then it turns down, and you actually get a lower high right there. And what you got is, notice that new high, and then you get a first entry, and you're working down, and you get a second entry. You basically got two legs back with a double leg in the middle. And when it fails there and turns down, I'd consider going short, because we're probably coming back to here. And that's exactly where we come back to. We actually come up a tad short there, but the market just got stronger. And notice this is working down. You get a break, a couple legs to a new low, and reverses. It'd be nice if you could go long down here, but without that being back to the trend line, without that being a great signal bar, I'd just skip this one. There's a higher low right here, but now you're right. You don't have much room back to the EMA. I'd prefer to have a little more room than that. It takes on off, but you can't do anything about that. There's just not a good setup. So if you were going to go long, you might take this one. And if you had a good signal bar down here, I'd probably still skip this one, because we're not back to the trend line. You'd be better off to take the higher low, because it just gives you a little more confirmation that, hey, prices are turning back with a trend now. So it bounces, it takes off. You get your first break. And again, if you draw your little channel, notice what happens. You get an overshoot, which generally means a break's coming, which is right here. And you get two legs up, and then you get a lower high, and look how far you still are away from the EMA. It's a little bit of congestion there, a little range it's looking like, although, you know, when it's like that on your chart, you don't have enough real confirmation that it's going to hold, but it's sure looking like one. And then you get two legs up, and it makes a lower high, still way away from the EMA. Nice bearish bar. Go short right there. And it actually gives you a failed second entry long there. It breaks higher and turns and goes out the other side. And you still got room here. This is one I didn't mark, but it's a possibility. You could argue for it. We'll at least make it green. But you could take that trade. It's just a little bit aggressive. And we did just come off the midline, and we did just have a failed breakout, and now we're back inside. And I guarantee there's a bunch of people that probably went long on that if you count from here, as a first entry, second entry. And that's another reason I like that, because it's a failed second entry long in an uptrend for the most part. So it's probably prices are going to at least come back to here. And this actually broke lower and turned and went out the other side. There may be enough room to scalp out in there, and for is, you might try to take that one. Again, I think you're better off just to wait and get a better entry than that. But if you got enough room to scalp out before you get back to the resistance, you may take that trade. And we run up, and you almost get it. This is like a perfect repeat pattern of this. It's two-leg correction, then we go sideways for a while. Notice we're working up. I don't have the other side on it. We didn't get the overshoot on this one, but it's still a repeat pattern. You get the break, move to a new high, and then it turns down. So you might go short there. It's also a failed break out of this little congestion area, but it's a break of the trend line, new high. Plus, that's where your measured move is. You're basically turning down right off your measured move. You can see that that's where our measured move was too. And so that's why I like that one. Again, you might wait on the next high. It actually comes back here and gives you another setup. It's not a lower high, but it's a double top, really still. You're still a long way away from the EMA, big bearish bar. Look at it go. And then we're just back into a different channel now. You just don't really get a good setup on it. That bar's too big. This bar is bullish enough, but with those matching highs and being right in the middle, it's not a good place. This would be the place to go short, but you don't have a good signal bar there. And you just don't get any decent signal bars till you get this failed breakout and it bounces. Where does it bounce? Right off the key entry point. And it actually ticks lower by one tick and turns and goes out the other side. That is a great short trap. And look at it rocket on up. It pulls back here, gives you a higher low, but signal bar is not very good. But if you're just patient a minute, you get this little break lower on a failed second entry short, and it turns and goes right out the other side. This is right at the measured move, but since we just came off the trend line, we're probably going to continue to go higher. And that thing, with that little trap there and a reversal, generally I don't like to enter that far away from the EMA, but because it was a trap the way it worked out, all in one bar, you'd probably want to take that one, especially after we'd been in this range for so long. Because a lot of people are going to be looking to ride that range back down, but really the range had gone here. So you're better off to wait on a lower high or a double test or something, and it just turns into a trap. This is really close to being green, but because of that trap, I felt like you could make it blue. And it runs up, and we're just chopping around in this stuff here, kind of going sideways, congestion area. This was another engulfing bar here that broke lower and turned up on a pullback, but it's just right in the middle of nowhere. I mean, we just came off the midline, and we're not back here. We don't know if we're going to get through there, so it's just too dangerous. There's a higher low here, but it's still inside that resistance across there. I don't have my line, but there's resistance across there. I mean, you can see that. And if you draw this, you can see that little failed break lower there. But I just still think you don't have much room back to the highs, so it's just not a great trade. But here, you get a first entry, then a second entry, and it fails. And it's a little breakout pullback too if it fails. So you may take that one. It's probably going to trap some people. It didn't go very far before it pulls back again, and then you just don't get a setup. And then you're working higher again. Come back down, and now you're chopping around sideways again. There's a double test short right here on the second entry. Notice that new low, first entry, second entry, and you made that high. You test it once, you test it twice. So you might have gone short right there, but it's right into the EMA. It's right into the midline. You do have this little trend working down, and it's a second entry. So that's another one. I didn't mark it. I meant to mark it green, and I forgot to come back and mark it. I'm going to go ahead and give it a green one. Well, I meant to give it a green one. So it's just a possibility. I'd probably skip it and wait and see if you get a long down here. And then, of course, you get this breakout. And you could really look at that as a second entry breakout. But again, you're just kind of in limbo here in an odd place. It is a failed break. So, again, by the rules, you could take it. I'm going to at least mark it green. But it's just not a trade I'd probably take because there's a chance it could fail. You could come back and turn back down because we just came off the midline and we're not getting back up here. So there's a good chance we're coming back to the trend line. But once you make the little double test here and get that bullish bar, and the fact that it breaks lower, if it breaks above there, we're probably going to move on up again. and that's what it does. Takes off. You just got to make sure you got room to get out before getting back to this line. That's the secret there on that one, or the deciding factor really. And you're working up, and you just don't really get another good setup. And you start going sideways again. You get that little failed break. It's kind of like a little repeat pattern here. Again, the trend's up, and you expect us to turn down from here, but that's so congestive, you just might as well treat that like a little failed break lower. Where does it go? It goes back up, and then you get a little failed second entry short. The only problem here is you got to go long. Almost, we broke lower first, so you would go long right one tick above that, and then that's right into the upper part here. And by the time it gets up here, you don't have much room left. It's still something to consider because it's a trap. So again, you could probably argue for it to at least be green. But I'd be honest with you, way up here, even with a trap, I'd probably, but you can see how it rockets off that it trapped people. I'd probably skip it all the same. And then up here, I'd just be looking for a possible short, but I don't see anything that really sets up good. You just don't want to go long up here. It's just not a great place to be going long. And you can see we start working sideways again. And I did mark a short here on a double test. Notice we made that high. We tested first once, we tested twice, and we're just in a range. You got plenty of room to get out. It just kind of picks back up where that support was across there. And then you finally get a bounce off the lows with the trend. Nice bullish bar. Stay out of this middle stuff. Another failed break lower here. There's a higher low here. I did not mark it, but it's a possibility. It looks a lot like congestion because you got 3 or more bars. 2 of them have a little body or hardly no body. So they're a little risky, but it's a failed breakout and it's a higher low. So if you break above that, you're probably going on up. So it's another one that you could at least mark green that I didn't mark. That late in the day, I'd want a better setup than that, because if you have a loser this late in the day, a lot of times you don't have. And notice we didn't go much higher, and then it's rocketing back down, and we actually get that break. Because remember, we had this overshoot, and so that's what you had to be careful about here. But we are bouncing off the midline and making a higher low, and it was a range, so it's a little failed breakout. The key again would be how much room do you have back to the EMA, and so it's a possibility. But anyway, and that's pretty much what I saw today. Back out again, you can see the big picture real clear all the way up until you had the overshoot, then you had the break, and we're still trying to make a retest of the high. So anyway, I'm not going to carry this on. We're about 23 minutes, which is getting about 3 minutes longer than I'd like it to be. So I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.